Hello book friends, welcome back to my channel. Court is now in session. I wanted to come to you today with some of my favorite titles. I have so many it's hard for me to choose, but I've decided to narrow all my books down today to 10 books that you can learn something. Some get 2 thumbs up, some not so much, but I still feel like perhaps there's something to be gleaned from them. The first book I want to read just came out recently, and I want you to get a copy in your hands. It is called My Real Name is Hannah. And what makes this book unique is it covers the topic of 2 families in the Ukraine who are Jewish who hid out in a series of caves. Their story is gut-wrenching, it's horrifying, and yet it's beautiful. This hope to survive is what makes this book a sustaining winner, in my opinion. And of course, as the book judge, my opinion must be right. The second book I would recommend to you is Alias Anna. There are hardly any known survivors of the Ukrainian Holocaust. So many Jews were killed there, hardly any were left to tell their story. These 2 sisters had a unique skill set, and they were able to change their names and identity, and it saved them. In fact, this book is so compelling, Steven Spielberg actually interviewed one of the sisters who survived in his Shoah Project. You can find the Shoah Project in certain universities around the United States and World War II museums. So I would encourage you to read this book. It is set up like a large orchestral piece. All of my kids play classical instruments, so I am familiar with musical terminology. You may not be, but here's your chance to get really smart before you return to school. Also, this book is filled with poetry, and while some of you may be going, poetry, it's not what you would think. The story is written in such a way that you don't even recognize you're reading poetry, or the poetry leads you to the next page because you must find out what happens. So for book number 2, please read Alias Anna, and a second book by these same authors is due out very soon. The kind of poetry that's written in here is described in the back at length, and the authors take time to tell you why they used poetry and how they used poetry, and the whole thing is just really a masterpiece. So this is an artfully written book, and you will go back very smart. Music makes you smarter, reading makes you smarter, poetry makes you smarter. Be smarter than your friends. Book number 3, this is maybe for our younger audiences. It's called Hero on a Bicycle. I love the cover art, and we are not to judge a book by our covers here at the Book Judge channel, but the red, white, and blue kind of captured my attention. However, it takes place in a country that I hadn't thought about before, and I'm not going to tell you which one, so you will go out and read it. It's interesting the role that young children played in the war. It's interesting to note that young teenagers were part of the resistance. Very brave young men and women played a huge role in the war. And everything that was good and noble, they were participating in it. Some helped out those factions who were trying to stop Hitler. Some helped those that were hiding from Hitler. And this novel is so compelling. Just the title caught my curiosity. The bright colors did capture my attention. And so I bought this book wondering, will this story live up to the book? But it did. It's 2 thumbs up. I recommend this even for 4th and 5th graders. Even a well-read 2nd or 3rd grader would really understand the Holocaust and what good people did to stand up against evil. So as an adult, I love this book, and it helped me see a different part of Europe involved in the war that I had not considered before. So get this one. Number 4 on my list, No Better Friend. This is a fantastic read that I didn't expect to like. I confess, I bought this book probably over 2 years ago for my son. He loves to read about great battles, but both of us let it sit on our mini library shelves and collect dust. I picked it up the other day and could not put it down. Do I love dogs? Yes, I have an 8-year-old beagle named Buddy, and I love a good dog story, but this is phenomenal. This is a true story about soldiers and the hope that they found from this dog. I'm not going to reveal the dog's name, and I'm not going to tell you the soldier's name, but they built a special relationship. They survived on 2 or 3 continents together across their lifetime. This dog won a Medal of Honor. And that's all I'm going to say about what's in it, because you're going to want to read it. Maybe you don't like humans and love dogs, read this book. Maybe you don't like dogs but love humans, read this book. Maybe you love both. This is absolutely worth it. I now feel bad that it's sat on my shelf for 2 years. Please get this book. Please read it. It will help you understand what war in the South Pacific looked like. It will help you understand what men in uniform overcame to survive. And this book reveals how much a pet gave men hope during war. This story has such a beautiful ending. This man and this dog continue through life together. I think by the time I had read the book, I had counted 3 different continents where they had traveled, and they both won medals for their service, their military service. This gives you a unique perspective on things in the South Pacific that took place during World War II. If you're not aware, this is the book for you. I really thought I was aware, but I wasn't until after I read this book. So there's always something to learn. Reading makes you smarter. Read this book. Next on my list, I didn't expect to like this one, is Hunger Winter. Now, I will tell you, I wasn't sure that I would like this book, but once I began reading, I could not put it down, and I hope you feel the same way about it. Not only was there a world war going on, there were people that were starving. We had potato failures. We had troops burning crops to starve people out of hiding. So what if you were young and little and you had promised your parents you would take care of your younger sister? How would you survive? How would you get food? Where would you hide? What would you do? Would you negotiate? Would you do something unthinkable to save your little sister? This book takes us on an incredible journey through what it's like to be in charge, what it's like to have to be an adult at a very young age. This book takes us through the journey of surviving hunger. People ate tulip bulbs during the war to survive. People ground acorns during the winter to survive. This book is fantastic. It will make you smarter. It will make you wiser. You will understand how young children had to be adult-like at such an early age. While we would love to protect our children from everything, we know we can't. And I love the fact that this older brother made a promise and kept it to his little sister. This book is sweet, it is scary, and it kept me reading. It's one of those books, once again, that can be read in 2 hours, and it will make you smarter. Go back to school with some knowledge in your pocket. And last on my list is Bomb. Wow. I first read this book years ago when my children were little. And I have to tell you, there is 1 or 2 swear words in there. That is never okay by me. However, I'm guessing in Los Alamos, where the bomb was built, there was probably far more going on than swear words. That doesn't mean that makes it okay. Just when books are written for students, I wish they could leave it out. It is saved for the very end, for very scary moments. However, this book is worth the read. If you want to blot out that word, you can. It's not probably the word you're thinking of. Perhaps I'm giving it too much hype, but I always want to censor it for younger readers just a little bit. I know how the war ended, but this book made me want to turn page after page after page. And something else I did with this book with my children, my husband was traveling through India. We had CD players back in the day. I don't know if any of you will remember that, but we listened to this book on audio, and the reading was so compelling. I remember gripping the steering wheel. We drove all around the Midwest and the North to visit relatives and see people we hadn't seen in a long time. And we listened to this. Whenever I looked in the rearview mirror, my kids, their eyes were as big as eyeballs because they were so scared of what happened next. Now, we know this is a true story. We know the film Oppenheimer is out right now. Read this book before you go see the film. See how true to life this is. This is excellent writing. And though it's written for students, as an adult, I absolutely thought it was phenomenal. I really actually almost enjoyed the audiobook better than the book, but there's something about reading the pages. And this book is read. It is on audio CD. You can get it on Audible if you wish, but there's something about reading the words that go into our memory and are stored in a memory bank in a way that auditory is not. So this book was so compelling for me. I both read it and listened to it, and I would encourage you to do the same. This author is fantastic. So I say read a book and listen to a book. Both options play a different role in the way that you learn. It's one thing to read and it's another thing to listen. This book deserves both. And again, with the film Oppenheimer, which I haven't seen, I don't know if Hollywood did a good job or if they messed it up, but with the film Oppenheimer coming out, I think your children should read Bomb to further explain the story to them. So that's it, friends. Those are my top 6 winning books for summer. Now, I have 4 more that I'm going to share with you. However, they are my meh books. The previous 6 books, I could wholeheartedly give you 2 thumbs up. These are more meh. But the question then comes in, can you learn from a so-so book? Can you learn from something that doesn't really grab your attention, but you might need to learn? Now, I say you can. And sometimes you have to read those books to understand things. If you want to understand how a piece of equipment that you just purchased works, you read the manual. So there are some books I feel very conflicted about, but I do think you could learn something from them. They are not going to get my full endorsement. I will link them below, as I always do. But I'm going to let you make the choice. In fact, I'd like to hear back from you. Most likely you will study these books in school at some point. The one thing that concerns me about these books is some of them I think should have been written together all at once. And clearly somebody had been directed to break them up in trilogies. And that tends to be a bigger moneymaker for the author. One of these books is called Once. Now, this is a very well-written book. It is absolutely terrifying. And I was scared as I read it. Now, I will tell you that 2 more books are written. I think the second book really tried to be a connector, but I did like how the series ended. So this is a 3-book series. I will link all of them below. I do think something could be learned from this book. Actually, I know something could be learned from this book. It's the 2 following books that I just feel a lot of question marks about. I believe that we like to see how things finish. It's a very innate human quality. We want to see something come full circle, and if you read the trilogy, you will. However, I think with a slightly different ending, this could have been a very good standalone book. Because it's part of a trilogy, and I think the author tried a little bit too hard to connect some things, I got lost on book 2. It just wasn't as compelling. And I think it would be hard to write a connector book. I think he actually had the 3rd part of this series in mind, maybe before the 2nd. And to me, the middle book would be the most challenging. So for that reason, I can't give the whole series a 2 thumbs up, but you can learn from this book. Tell me what you think. Is this a winner? Should the book have stopped at book 1? Let me know. The next book that I feel meh about was actually quite interesting. It's called Fly Girl. Now, when I sense a book has an agenda, that's where I lose interest. And this book definitely had some agenda, in my opinion. You may or may not agree with me, and that's okay. Tell me your thoughts below. Let me know what you think. But I do think there's something to be learned from this. When I was recently, as you know, at the World War II Museum in New Orleans, where I spent every spare moment I could while I was on my trip, I learned about the WASPs. I learned about the women aviators. I learned about the women aviation team, and they played a significant role in World War II. This is a very spotlighted moment. This is a very interesting moment. I do feel like there is an agenda in this book that I didn't really think was necessary. Is it going to make you worse for reading it? No. You do need to know what happened. You do need to know the role women played. As you know, I'm not a feminist. I am feminine, but I am not a feminist. So I don't think women need more power. I think we have all the freedom everybody else has in America and more. So I am not promoting feminism, but this book does give you an interesting perspective on the role women played as aviators and how they helped in wartime efforts. So I do think there's something to be learned. Again, I wasn't crazy about the agenda. If the agenda had been left out of this, 2 thumbs up for me. But on this one, I have to go with meh. Can a judge go with meh? In real life, no. It's this or that. But here we can. Let me know what you think about this book. Next on my list of books to read before you go back to school is The Green Glass Sea. Now, this cover is so much better than the most recently released one, which is this. I'm not sure why someone would take a gorgeous, well thought out cover like this and turn it into this. But I think there could be an agenda in this recent change. Now, as part of their homeschooling, my children had to read this book. I did enjoy it, but I started feeling a little concerned that there could be a couple of agendas in here. One thing that bothered me is all the references to cigarette smoking. Now, we know this is a time in Los Alamos where a little town had to go up in a heartbeat as we are racing to beat Hitler to building a bomb with nuclear power. This book covers that topic from the perspective of a young girl with her father having to move away from everything she loves to make this happen. Now, my girls could really relate to that because they were very young when they read this, and we have moved many times throughout our 30 years of marriage. What I don't understand is why the author would let this new updated cover come out from this to this. So when I saw this cover, I wondered if my thoughts were true. In fact, it's this cover that kept me from reading the 2 companion books to this. So, if you can find the old one, you will love it. I'm sure this is the same, but I refuse to open the cover because I find it a little bit insulting. And I think it might be taking this book where I didn't want it to go. So when I feel concerned about something, I typically stop. So is there something to be learned from something that I find it could be questionable down the road. There is. This does give you a very interesting and unique perspective from a little girl who's being relocated from the Chicago area to Los Alamos. But again, a lot of times we glamorize what took place, and there's a lot about red lipstick and cigarette smoke and how they ate and what they ate and how people were forced into being family groups. While I do believe all of that took place during World War II, I'm a little bit concerned about where this book is heading, and I hope I'm wrong. If somebody's read the other 2 books and can comment below, let me know. But I did learn much from it. So that's why it's still on my list for the 10 books that can give you something, an edge over your friends. As we're looking at freedom and those who lack it, we never think about those who had to be moved to make this project happen. They gave up their freedom and their comfort and their known life to win the war effort. So it's a different perspective. I liked it. My girls liked it. I'm just feeling like I'm not so sure. And again, we don't judge a book by its cover. I just don't know why it would take something well thought through and turn it into this. Finally, my last book that I feel meh about, and I'll tell you why, is War Horse. The author is well known. He often likes to write war books that have something to do with a pet or an animal in them because he does understand the humanity it brings to us. It's interesting that animals make us more human or more loving as they are. Pets can be very loyal, and sometimes I think it's within all of our hearts. We wish humankind would be as loyal as our pets are. So what I found interesting, and you will hardly ever hear me say this on The Book Judge, is in this instance, I actually think the movie was better than the book. What? Again, this is a probably once in a lifetime comment. While the book is interesting and somewhat compelling, I think Steven Spielberg did a better job with War Horse. I think he gave us a better visual of what the author was trying to accomplish. And we all know it's very hard to take a book and take it to the screen. But I felt like Steven Spielberg picked up the essence of this book and made it real for us. So I made the mistake of going to see the movie first, not knowing it was based on a book. Even though I was a homeschool mom, forgive me, I did not know that there was a book until at the end of the movie, where you understand that this story that Steven Spielberg has just presented comes from a book. I actually think, and no, I'm not a fan. Nope, cross it out. Not a big fan of movies, but I do think on this one, Steven Spielberg came out on top. However, what did redeem this book is the younger children's book. Now, I just bought this recently. Sometimes a way to introduce readers to something that they're going to be reading again and again, and we know that we cycle through topics throughout life, is to start them when they're young. Something that I would recommend is maybe for younger readers, and even as adults I enjoy this picture book, is to start them out with the picture book version. Kids at very young ages don't need to know everything that took place around the war, but they do need to know what happened, and they do need to know why it's important. I had 2 grandfathers that fought in World War II and one who fought in World War I. He was my great-grandfather. Now, probably kids reading these books have great-great-grandfathers who fought in the war, and we know that most of that generation has died out, sadly. Some of their stories were captured, and so this book is beautiful. I picked it up for our younger readers who need to understand some basics about the war that might go on to read this book later. So while I feel like Michael's book is meh, I did like the picture book, and I would highly recommend it to you. So read these books, teachers, know what you're talking about. Read these books, parents, so you know what you're talking about. Read these books, students, so you're ready with some comments. Teachers love it when children have questions and are inquisitive. Go back to school smarter. As a parent, as a teacher, as a student, go back with more knowledge in your pocket. And let me know what you think about them. Let me know if you thought my picks were appropriate. Let me know if you agree with my top 6 favorite books and my 4 not so much books. I would love to hear your thoughts below. Again, subscribe to The Book Judge. You've heard my rulings on these books, and I need to know what you think, so let me know below. And if you have others that you would like for me to check out, I would love your suggestions. I will link every book I discussed today down below, and you can click on it and have those books shipped to you, and you can be reading and going back to school equipped for your school year. Thanks for tuning in. Court is adjourned, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye, book friends.